Hi, welcome to Fred Hampton Left. This is the Thursday Roundtable. My name is Akini, and I'll be hosting today. I'm super excited to be here. Today we have RJ, we have JB, we have Andy, we have Savvy Sabs, and Nick. And we are all here to just talk about some stories, give our opinions, and talk a little shit as usual. So yeah, y'all. The first story definitely has to be about Jeff Bezos in his 11-minute space flight. He spent all of those millions and billions of Amazon dollars on 11 minutes of pointless space flight. So I want to go to Nick first. I want to get your initial thoughts because I feel like if there's anybody who's just a true anti-capitalist, like to the core, it's you. So I just really want to hear like how you feel about him thanking all of his employees for all of their hard contributions to his vanity project.
Now you guys see why I frame everything in the context of the class war. If you're not framing stuff in the context of the class war, you're missing one giant part because they just openly admitted. Bezos like, thanks for the surplus labor, guys. Now going off to space. So I want people to understand what that is. When you see all the extra money going to these space flights that are not doing anything for the working class. I mean, we got a homelessness crisis. We got people that are barely able to eat. Income inequality that continue to get worse. Climate change that is not being answered for. But we got rich oligarchs playing space wars. That's them stealing your surplus labor and then funding their own ego-based pursuits. Now, I want people to understand that we are not this super highly advanced society that we think we are. We're not this enlightened society. We like to think we are. We like to think that we made a lot progress when we got rid of emperors, kings, and queens and all that stuff. But we have not. The only thing we did, we removed the emperor and the king and replaced it with the hyper-capitalist oligarch, the feudal lord. Jeff Bezos is probably one of the most powerful people in the world, period. I don't want to hear anything about a politician or kings in other countries. These people run the game. We are the same apes that worship these people and put them on a pedestal. And now you see, like, you guys know, there was just a graph. I don't see if I can get actual numbers, but the cable news will talk about what happened with Jeff Bezos and his space adventures more than they talk about climate change in the last day or so. So we worship these people. The mainstream liberal constituent love Bill Gates. They love these billionaires, but they have done untold amount of harm to humanity, and they continue to do so by stealing our resources. Because a lot of people think that's Jeff Bezos' resources. That's not his. That's ours. And Jeff Bezos and these billionaires are a product of bad policy. Someone like Jeff Bezos should not exist, period. So I would try and do my best to avoid reading about it, but it's everywhere. The worship of billionaires is everywhere. So this story was particularly frustrating for me, just because you just see how they are able to do whatever. So I'll pass it back to you, Finney.
Yeah, matter of fact, RJ, go ahead and put that tweet up that shows us exactly how much time the mainstream media has spent talking about this rocket and talking about this billionaire who is literally sucking all of the wealth and all of the resources out of the world. Like, let's just see how much time we spent talking about, him in compared to, all the flooding across the world or the record-breaking temperatures that are happening, that are melting the ice caps, and our existential death that's just coming slowly before our eyes. Did you hear what I don't know. But so the mainstream media spent just on July 20th, 212 minutes talking about Jeff Bezos and Blue Orbit. They spent 267 minutes in total all across 2020. So while our climate is literally melting down, we are paying more attention and giving more lip service to people that have more than enough money, more than enough power, more than enough capital. Like, these are not the issues that we need to be talking about. And it just shows us that the mainstream media is just literally a propaganda machine that's just here to distract us from the real issues. So, JB, I want to just go ahead and jump to you and just see how you feel about all this.
if I if I wanted to watch a giant phallus go into space, I never mind. Yeah. So I like what one of the viewers said in the comments. Um, oh, I think I missed it, but they said that Jeff Bezos is the real Lex Luthor. I wanted to give that person credit, but yeah, he's just a second-rate uh, dollar store Lex Luthor. And but the real thing is that you have someone like Jeff Bezos going out into outer space as basically like a little pet project, and yet you have people in poor spaces that are sleeping out in the streets, and you have them, we don't have healthcare. This is one of the reasons why we're doing the Medicare for All March this weekend. You also have someone like Jeff Bezos who has the power to pay his employees a living wage. I'm not talking about the $15 an hour that Bernie Sanders shamed them into paying. I'm talking about a real, true living wage that he could have did for his workers. So there's
I
so much
apologize,
that
but
he.
can anyone who is not talking mute so we can figure out what's going on with that sound? Andy, I think you're the only one not muted right now. You mind muting your mic?
Sure.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the sound is coming from, but I figured if anyone just mute, if you're not talking, we figure it out eventually. But sorry, go ahead, JB.
Mhm. And so the thing is that when it comes to someone like Bezos, there's so much that he could do. And I wanna I want everybody to do a little bit of a thought exercise right now. I'm pretty sure that many of you have actually had a point in your life where you thought, man, if I had $1 billion, what would I do? Jeff Bezos has that over 100 times over. And he decided to jump in a rocket to go into barely out of our atmosphere for what? For what? And then you have the mainstream media fawning all over it. I put out a tweet, what, about an hour and a half ago? About an hour and a half ago, said, if you can mind control Jeff Bezos, what would you do? So many people have so many different ideas of what they would do. So this just goes to show that, number one, we live in a failed state. The fact that we have this many billionaires means that we live in a failed state because they are driving our political discourse, and they are using us basically as their personal servants to create wealth. So, because of this, I think that it is a shame on us that we even gave any attention to Jeff Bezos for doing something like this.
People donated $19 million. Like other rich people donated $19 million to Blue, what is it, Blue Origin? And
Mhm.
Jeff Bezos had $200 million just lying around. And that is 0.1% of his wealth. $200 million just lying around to just invest in a vanity project. If he really wanted to, Jeff Bezos could end world hunger tomorrow. Him, Elon Musk, all of them. If they wanted to end the housing crisis, if they wanted to house every single human being in the world and give them indoor plumbing, build water filters in their homes, put wells where there need to be wells, if he really wanted to do that, he could do it in a blink of an eye and probably have plenty of money left over. And you think like 11 minutes to go barely above the atmosphere in a world that's already melting down. You put out more emissions at the end of the day. But what did you really accomplish? What did you do with that $220 million that could have been invested in, I don't know, putting like better educational systems in some of these countries that we've stolen so many resources from? Like, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all of them, they've built their empires on the backs of these countries. So why aren't you investing all your money back into them? Because without these countries, you wouldn't have anything. What are you doing? But no, this is all a vanity project. And our mainstream media and most of American culture is praising this man for absolutely no reason. What did he do to materially better your life other than steal a bunch of money from working class people that are literally peeing in bottles in his factories? What did he do other than just shit on all of us and say, haha, I'm rich and you're not. I can just do this for fun. People's lives are in danger. People are about to get evicted from their homes, and this man can just spend this money. And this is why we need wealth taxes. This is why billionaires are just not ethical. Having this much money is not ethical. It is not moral. And we need to be able to speak out against that. And we need to be able to make sure that people cannot create these monopolies and hoard all this wealth like this. Sabs, I see you over there thinking, your wheels turning. So I just want to know how you feel about this and Jeff Bezos and his very phallic missile.
Oh my gosh. I think the thing that was interesting to me is when he said, basically to his employees, the Amazon employees, thank you because you made this happen. So Jeff Bezos was able to go into space because you have Amazon employees working around the clock, peeing in bottles, only getting like 15-minute breaks. Even the ones that tried to go on strike, you see that, not much, ended up coming from that. But it was basically like a slap in the face to Amazon employees, like, ha ha, thank you for all your hard work. This allowed me to go to space. So that in itself should be enough for Amazon workers across this country to strike. I think all of them should walk out. And it would have to be a significant amount of them to do it. You can't just have like the workers that protest in Alabama. You can't just do that. You need a significant amount of them to do it. But I was telling people this the other day when I was talking about the Frito-Lay strike. And my whole thing is like, if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, I highly recommend that you cancel your subscription, because think about how much money Jeff Bezos makes just off of the subscriptions alone. Last time I checked, I think it's like 100 something a year, unless you're a student, and students get the discount. So we have to make some noise here too. We can't just rely on the employees to do it, because I have realized that there are people that live in towns in this country where Amazon is the only one hiring in town because they have shut everybody else out of business. So they have no choice but to go and work for Amazon. And that is really scary, because it's getting to the point where Amazon is starting to take over other businesses. I'm seeing a lot of businesses close. And this is before COVID. All these retail stores, grocery stores, especially once they acquired part of Whole Foods, I saw all these stores close. And I'm like, when are people going to speak out about this? Because it's going to get to the point where Amazon is pretty much going to have control over consumerism, because they pretty much sell everything. And that is very, very scary. And that means that someone like Jeff Bezos can continue to exploit his workers and then use that money to do something silly like what he just did, like going to space. And I agree with Afeni and JB. He could have used that money for so much more good. All these people in the country right now that have been evicted, more people will be evicted at the end of July. He could have used that money towards something good, but no, he did it for a vanity project. He used the money for himself. And that just goes back to the capitalist system that we have in this country and the greed that he has.
And I just saw that comment that said that, somebody was disabled and, using Amazon is the only way for them to get their resources. And this is when I say that community needs to step in and keep us safe. We need to start creating the infrastructures, and so that we don't have to rely on companies like Amazon to deliver our goods and our resources. This is why we need to get to know our neighbors, especially our disabled neighbors, because, they should not have to pay whatever extra money or whatever extra fees just to get their resources delivered to their homes. Like, we need to start taking care of each other. Like, we really genuinely do. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah. So just to add on to your point, Amazon should not be the only company that we can rely on in order to do these things. The fact that it's the only company is a travesty in itself. And I think I echo the words of Teddy Roosevelt as when he was the trust buster, that we need to break up these companies absolutely and immediately, because it is a detriment to all of us.
Like, when does the greed end? Like, when is it acceptable? Like, when is it acceptable to tell these people no? When are we actually going to break these people up? Go ahead, Nick.
I just want only thing I want to add, and then we can get Andy's thoughts on this. Is I saw someone on Twitter mention Jeff Bezos added $1.7 billion to his net worth just in the time he launched his spaceship. You guys know that? So you guys know that Bezos could take all that money he made just how flying in space. He could dumped it out in space, and then by the time he got back, he still made more money than about 21,000 Amazon workers. So I want people to understand, like, the system we are in right now is not sustainable. And we're not trying to radicalize average people. I tell it straight up. The money you see that Jeff Bezos has, the money you see Elon Musk has, the money you see Bill Gates have, that is money that's being siphoned from our community and siphoned from what otherwise be small businesses that's thriving, because businesses like Amazon and these giant corporate oligarchs, they swallow and destroy communities. These are the long-term effects of that. And it's kind of crazy to watch a society um reach a point where it's gonna be completely unstable. Late stage capitalism. We're watching it in slow motion, while the left is begging the capitalists to get serious and actually have an efficient economic model where we can transfer goods in an efficient way. We're just watching the planet continue to heat up. We're watching poverty continue to get worse in the country that has the most resources. And I want people to understand it's because of Jeff Bezos. But back to Finney.
Yeah, I definitely want to get Andy's thoughts on this, so we're just going to go ahead and go to Andy.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody has an idea of how insignificant this is, right? This going into space, right? 1969, they built a ship that went to the moon that was basically made with 2 soup cans and a string, okay? That was a long time ago. This is such an insignificant thing. You could probably make a spaceship with a toaster, a jerry can, and a handful of Bic lighters and be able to do the same thing that Jeff Bezos did. It's this glorification of rich people, the Kardashians, right? Donald Trump. Why did people think that it was a good idea for Oprah Winfrey to run as a Democrat in 2016? All of these things of this glorification of rich people is so obscene in our society. And a lot of the reason why Americans can't have nice things, right? It's this American dream scenario that people think that, well, if I just try harder, or if I make the right choices, someday that could be me. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to happen.
We are all closer to homelessness than we will ever be to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos only is who he is, like everybody said, because he has destroyed many businesses, many lives. He has displaced people. Him and his businesses have been the reason why places like DC have been rapidly gentrified and Black people have lost their housing. Mm-hmm. Like Jeff Bezos, like him and his greed goes a lot deeper. Like the harms go a lot deeper than just the surface of this man is very rich. Mm-hmm. And, he's done all these things. Like, what did he do to be that obscenely rich?
Yeah. Mr. Finney, may I point out something? To anybody who is a capitalist or to anybody who may be a conservative that is listening, we are not shitting on Jeff Bezos. I try not to curse. We're not crapping on Jeff Bezos because we're a hater of Jeff Bezos because of that. We hate the system that created Jeff Bezos because it is unfair to those of us who go without our basic needs. The fact that someone like Jeff Bezos can do what he does, and the fact, like Andy so eloquently said, the glorification of those who have too much, is a travesty, and it is immoral to have that within the system that we live in. We live in a country that has so much and yet gives so little to so many. So that's basically like, it's like having a buffet and you have one or two people are able to eat everything in the buffet, but the little crumbs go out to the majority of the people that are standing outside. And you say, see, there's not enough for everybody. That is immoral. And so we work hard just like Jeff Bezos does. His life does not matter more than ours. Okay? And this is something that people need to hear. A person who is rich, their life does not matter more than yours. So therefore, they do not deserve that much more than you do. You work just as hard. You have the exact same amount of days, months, and years in your life as they do. So therefore, they do not deserve that much more. And the fact that Jeff Bezos is able to have so much more than everybody else, and the fact that he is walking on the backs of all of us, means that we should straighten up our back, stand up, and tell him no. Because we actually have the power to do that. And this is one of the reasons why we are having this conversation. Because we want you all in the chat to share this and let people know that they have the power to tell them no. And every single time they have a complaint, every single time they go without, every single time their lights get cut off, every single time that rent is due and they don't have the money to pay it, every single time a bill that comes in from medical bills, every single time you see one of those things, share this video, share this moment, and let them know that they can say no. And they're done with it. Because we're done with it. And we're sick and tired of being sick and tired because we don't have to be. I'm done.
Let me add something that backs up JV's point. I wonder if
Before you add something,
Go ahead, RJ.
We have a super chat question from Colin Reddix Carter. He asked thoughts on Van Jones getting that charity check by Jeff Bezos and his association. I feel like this is a valid question to bring to the panel since it's a super chat and as well as it connecting with the topic of Jeff Bezos. So anyone want to answer this question?
I'm not too familiar, so I'll pass it to the floor, and then I'll do my point after that.
I ain't too familiar with
Like,
that.
RJ, are you familiar with that? Because like this is the first time I'm hearing about Van Jones getting a charity check from Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like honestly, like you guys are breaking that to me. I'll be honest. Do you know more about that, RJ? Or anyone?
I heard it in passing.
Yeah, let's see if I can find some. Let's see if we find some information on it real quick. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look Van Jones Bezos.
Well, Nick, do you want to
here you go.
Okay.
I'll report on it. Here. It said this is CNN link from yesterday. It says Bezos donates 100 million each to CNN contributor Van Jones and Chef Jose Andres. I shared the screen.
From his quick trip to space, Jeff Bezos.
Let me shut Anderson Cooper up. I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but you guys know they always had that autoplay. I don't want to hear him. Mr. CIA himself. Here's a story so we can get caught up. Because I didn't personally hear about it. But this is his contribution. I wonder what their reasoning was for this. He planned to award 100 million each to CNN contributor. Let's see. I was trying to see what he said for the reasoning. Bezos said Jones and Andres were free to do what they want. So why are they doing this instead of feeding the homeless? Like Van Jones is a wealthy man, right? Am I missing something? I'm trying to see what I'm missing here, but it's like why are you getting your money to random rich people? I don't know who this guy is. Jose Andres. I don't know that guy. But Van Jones is really wealthy. They can give it all to their own charity. See, I went off on my own tangent on charities before because obviously the left is not a monolith, but as a leftist, as an anti-capitalist, I am not a big fan of charities. Charities are mostly a scam. Charities are a result of bad policy and a failed society. So, and I remember Bernie Sanders got a lot of crap for saying that, but that's the leftist position. Because if you are a big advocate of charity, you're just saying that you want a billionaire capitalist to be like the superhero that fixes society, and we're supposed to trust their best intentions. Charities oftentimes just come from overhead. It's big scams. Anyway, I don't want to go too on my own tangent. Anyone have anything else you want to add here? I'm not a big fan of charities. It's just that simple.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you ever see those commercials that come on sometimes like late at night, and it's the kids like crying and starving, like in Africa or like just a third world country, and they say donate. You can donate as little as like such and such dollars to a
80 cents a
child.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can help feed them today. I've been seeing those commercials since I was a kid. So if those charities are working out so great, why are they still asking people for money?
Every time I get information about these charities, it's always something ridiculous where like 90% of the funds don't go towards the problem they're trying to address. So I straight don't do it. Like people might think I'm an asshole, but people ask me like, "Do you want to donate to the charity?" Like, no, I don't know where the money is going. Cause you donate to the money, you go to some rich suit who use it as a tax write off. So like we support mutual aid and mutual aid groups. We don't support these charities that the billionaire capitalists use as write offs. That's what it is. So that's my initial reaction to the story. We just kind of read through it quickly here. If you have anything else you want to add, you guys can add it. But my first reaction, once again, just shows that Bezos is an asshole who don't really understand the point we are in society right now. Where you want to give money to the millionaire for their charities, like that's beyond ridiculous. And I'm glad I see a lot of comments agree with me. Corporate scams. It's like that to me. I think the leftist position, like. Because what capitalists will do, capitalists will be 100% okay with the flaws in society. And then when you bring up the flaws in society, they say, okay, you can have people who give charity to fix that. So when they see the fact that the GoFundMe is the largest healthcare provider, capitalists love that. That's not how it should be. Anyone got anything else you want to add to this part?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andy. And then
I was just going to say, sorry for interrupting. I was just going to say, let's not forget that if these are CNN commentators, right? Mainstream media has been, got the backs of the oligarch society for how many decades now, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be contributing to someone to make yourself look like a philanthropist, then why not butter the bread that you've been eating for the last 2-3 decades, right? Makes you look good. But it also says, thank you, mainstream media, for covering our asses and making us look good when we're actually screwing everyone in society and making life miserable for the world.
Yeah. And to add on to Andy's point, Jeff Bezos was just saving face because there's a lot of us who have the same view that a lot of us in the chat and here on the panel have. And because of that, he's trying to make a lot of the people who are watching go, oh, he's such a giving person. He spent all that money, went out in space, and then he wants to give money to a black man. Oh. And you know what? People fell for it. But you know what? We're not falling for it. And the thing is that this is one of the reasons why we're talking about it, what we're talking about.
I think it makes them look worse. But yeah, anything you want to add? Anything? I think I don't understand how this tricks people. I think it looks worse. Like, why you donate to rich people for their charity that they're gonna pocket? That's why we gotta rebuke this stuff, because the left position is we shouldn't be relying on charities to uplift society. What did you about to Afeni?
I was just gonna say that the only reason why like 501c3s, which is like the nonprofit and the charity structures, 501c4s, which are your political organizations, the only reason why those classifications were set up in the first place was to disrupt movements like ours. Like, that's the only reason why these things were even started to begin with. So now not only are they making all this money trying to pretend like they're actually helping people, but what they are doing is they're destroying grassroots movements and grassroots organizations by trying to tell us what we can legally do and what we can't legally do. They try to stifle what we can, like how radical our politics can be if we file for 501c for 501(c) classification. They tell us like that, certain mutual aid is not appropriate, like all types of different things. So this is only to dismantle socialist, like charities were only set up to actually dismantle socialist and actual left-wing policies and human rights campaigns, not to actually help anybody, just to make more money for people that are already rich. Honestly, Van Jones and all these other people, just like, the little boy, the 18-year-old kid that got put on that rocket with Jeff Bezos, he was not on there by chance. That wasn't out of the kindness of his heart. He was the son of some rich Dutch developer person. These people all take care of themselves. They don't take care of us. So that's why I say don't donate to charities. Donate to mutual aid. Don't donate to 501(c)(3)s and 501(c)(4)s and political campaigns. Don't donate to none of them. Donate to mutual aid. Donate to your local food banks. Donate even to some of these churches. I'm not a super religious person, but a lot of churches feed people. Donate to infrastructures like that are actually materially making your life better in your neighborhood, making your community safer with resources. Stop giving your money to the ACLU and all these other places. They're not doing anything good with it. They're just not. Don't do that. But I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
I have something that I want to add, because this is crucially important since we're talking about Jeff Bezos. And I mean, we're talking about surplus value and what he stole from workers. You guys got to understand that Amazon is where they are at right now because of their workers. And despite Jeff Bezos' wealth, they have nothing but disdain for their workers. I had a conversation with Jordan Charlton from Status Quo. It was about 2 weeks ago. And Status Quo does amazing journalism in exposing Amazon and their treatment of workers. So despite all of the wealth they steal from their workers, they have nothing but disdain from them. This came out from last month in Status Quo. They said, we uncovered Amazon workers in New York warehouses have been fainting, carted off. They've been taken on stretchers, passing out, having health crises because the insane hot working conditions in the warehouse. And this was a long-standing problem, to the point you had multiple facilities all over the country that was complaining to HR. And because Amazon is just this giant corporate conglomerate, it's very easy for them to drown out any concerns of the workers. So they had all these people from all over the country talking about the hot working conditions. You have people that are forced to work in hot trucks for around 20 to 25 minutes at a time. And then a lot of these facilities had no ventilation systems. They had no proper way to hydrate yourself. And Amazon, they claim they did, but Jordan explained he went to one of these places. They were passing out hot water to try to cool people off. So not only are they stealing massive amount of wealth from the workers, they are doing it in the most inhumane way possible, forcing people to work long hours with no break, with little to no break, with no proper AC, no proper way to manage the heat where they're working at. And Status Quo broke this story, and this is why you should support independent media that is willing to challenge Amazon in an adversarial way instead of CNN. And this is what this donation is about. It's Jeff Bezos buying the loyalty of Van Jones, CNN, and his buddies, and that's how they are able to get away with these kinds of things. But I'm gonna link this story in the comment section. It's worth reading because they go into very a lot of details and the conditions they force workers to go through, and the way they ignore workers who have complaints about the working conditions, because it was passed up to HR. They ignored it, and then people went to the media, and then they have people who are loyal Amazon loyalists in the media that was covering this up as well. So this is not only just they stealing the wealth, they are doing it off the back of the workers in the worst way possible. I just want to add that because it's deadly important to realize how morally bankrupt Amazon is.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Finney's point about the churches, some of these like wealthy pastors that you see on TV, like TD Jakes and Cleflo Dollar. I don't know if he's still a thing now or not, because I know he got into some trouble. And Joel Osteen, I think that's how you pronounce his name. You have to question where they're getting their money from, because going to church is free. Like, yeah, like you can donate money when they pass around the collection plate, but going to church is free. You don't have to donate money. So anytime you see a millionaire pastor living in these huge homes, driving fancy cars, I want you to question where they're getting their money from, because I think anybody should question that, because churches get like tax write-offs anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for all of your thoughts. We all know Jeff Bezos sucks a lot. RJ, do you want to add anything before I move on to the next story?
No, actually, we have a super chat question I think we should
Okay.
get to. It's asking everyone, you should check out the Space Communes documentary on nonprofit industrial complex NPIC. Will the revolution be funded? So that's what I wanted to bring to the screen.
Just a question. Was that part of the part that says "What would the revolution be funded"? Was that part of the title?
I think that's the question.
I'm just asking. Oh, yeah, it's going to be funded with blood, sweat, and tears. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. They're not going to give up their power easily. Power concedes nothing without demand. So we have to demand some shit in a real way. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next story. Texas is being the factory of white people it has always been, the factory of white supremacy and of white privilege. It smells like wet dogs and all types of foolishness. Texas has decided that, they should not teach actual American history and they should just teach that the KKK was good. So here are some of the things that Texas has dropped from its curriculum. Because these things apparently these are not fitting in within their white supremacist views. MLK's letter from the Birmingham jail. They're going to drop documents from the Brown v. Board of Education case. They're going to drop the history of this indigenous people and make it it's not mandatory to be taught anymore. We don't have to talk about the indigenous people whose land we stole from and, who were literally still occupying their space. We're erasing their culture and still, kidnapping their women as we speak right now. That's still happening in this country. So we're not allowed to learn about any of that. The women's suffrage movement, as racist as it was, as anti-Black as it was, they don't want them to learn about that. Apparently that's not fitting within their conservative view of patriarchy either. They want to teach the history of white supremacy as, something that isn't morally wrong. The KKK was not morally wrong. They are allowed to hang as many Black people from trees as they want, guys, according to Texas's history books. So, yeah. At first it was speaking out against CRT. Now it's just blatantly just throwing the hoods on. So I don't know who wants to take this first, but.
So there's a lot of conversation coming from mainstream political groupthink, and the fear mongering is over misinformation. There's misinformation everywhere. You can't trust anyone other than authoritarian news sources because of misinformation. The conversation that we need to be having is not about misinformation. It's about miseducation. Because when I say that America is the most propagandized country, I mean, I'm talking about the entirety of the board that we're talking about here. Not only what you see on TV, not only what you see in newspaper, but how we are trained to think in our education process. So when I see this story, I'm like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, because how do you maintain your flow of power? By controlling the flow of information. So our education system has always been garbage. They're ramping up to the next level of garbage now. But I explained this on my show before. Rockefeller himself he played a very large role in writing the education system. And they admitted the goal of American education system is not about creating intellectuals. It's not about creating critical thinkers. Rockefeller himself said the goal of our education system is to create loyal worker ants. Damn, they did a good job of doing that, didn't they? Really goddamn good job at doing that. Now, when I see this story, and I honestly want to ask you guys, what is this about? Really? Is it about keeping us more divided and conquered? Because there are more people that are starting to become class conscious. You even have Republicans that are starting to become class conscious. Well, they're starting. You got 1 out of 4 that's supporting Medicare for all, right? So is this a way for them just to disrupt this this class conscious feeling that Americans have? Because so they want like the discussion about critical race theory is important, but there's a reason they're pushing that. Like the establishment is not pushing that because they are just we're very curious about this topic. And once again, I'm asking you guys this more than anything, like what is their intention when they do stuff like this? Like are they purposely trying to divide and conquer? Or are they purposely trying to muddy the waters? Because the reason I asked this question is because honestly, I'm not seeing the KKK as a giant threat. You know what I mean? And when I say that, like when I see the people who are uplifting white supremacy, I'm seeing the people who are funding the cops more. You know what I mean? I'm seeing the people who continue to prop up the capitalists who steal our wealth. Like these are the biggest threats of white supremacy to me. Like the KKK has been rendered pretty irrelevant. I think they only have like 2,000 members nationwide. I'll fact check that, make sure I'm right here very soon. But I remember I looked at they got like 2,000 members. So why are they doing this? The only answer I can come to my head when I think about the story is that it's just divide and conquer, keeping people more ignorant of history. Because if you don't know history, because history did a lot for me in terms of me becoming radicalized. Because I able to get perspective, I was trying to see what's right, what works. So I think this is just a large pattern of them, and this is what Americans have done for a very long time, is to bastardize history, to keep people miseducated, so they won't be able to make proper decisions later on. So there's a lot of fear mongering about misinformation. Oh, misinformation here. That wouldn't be a problem if we had good education. That's why I always want to read it directly. I want to open up to the panel because that's kind of my initial reaction to hearing the story. I want to see what you guys think on that because I'm still wondering, like, what is their intention here? Because I don't see how this benefit the ruling class other than just dumbing down people more, so they'd be less likely to join coalition and be empathetic to people of color that they otherwise would be open to work with to dismantle capitalism. That's my initial take. What's your guys' thoughts?
Just real fast, I would just like to say that, America's a white supremacist country. Like, America is a white supremacist country. So I think, yes, the intention is to continue to misinform us and keep us divided on a class level, especially poor white people, because, for some reason they keep being told that whiteness is enough. Even though they don't have health care, they're still letting their pipes down there too. And their kids don't have any proper infrastructure for broadband, for Wi-Fi. They have those same problems in their rural neighborhoods, but they will vote against their interests every single time. And they will do that because they're racist. Period. White people don't want to be uncomfortable, especially not racist white people. You see what I'm saying? So when we are literally whitewashing and backing up, and just erasing history, what we're doing is, number one, we're reinforcing white supremacy, and we're reinforcing the violence that is necessary to keep Black people, especially, contained. We're reinforcing the violence and the mindset that is necessary to keep us all divided. Without white supremacy, without the classifications that white supremacy puts on all of us, how different would our lives really be? Without capitalism, all of us as human beings, without the things that divide us all because of white supremacy on this earth, how different would our existences be? We'll never know. Because they've decided that it is more beneficial for the 1% for everything to be divided the way it is. And white people have decided that they would rather hold on to their privilege and their whiteness than actually fight for their own interests. Because there are many of them that are aware of it, but would rather just be racist. Let's just be real. And that's the reason why, many of them are fighting against CRT, not because they feel like it's about to be some communist manifesto. Some of them feel like that because they're low information voters. But some of them know that the history of America is sick as hell. So if we actually go through and teach that, then America is literally going to be destroyed within itself. Because who actually wants to say that they are from a white supremacist, brutalizing, genocidal, settler colonialist country? Who's proud of that? Other than racist white people. So, I think JB or Sab was next. But yeah, let's go.
Sabi can go next.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me because I actually think that this is going to backfire. One of my students actually told me one time that they have actually learned more from the internet than they've learned in school. So what that tells me is that, the young, especially the younger generation, they are more likely to seek information out online. And we have a lot more technology now than we did when I was little. They are more likely to question what is told to them because of the technology that we have, because we have platforms like YouTube, Rockfin, Discord. They're going into chat groups. So I think that this is actually going to backfire on them because we have a generation coming through that is more curious. They want to know these things, and they're also more diverse. The country is becoming more and more diverse, and the majority know that. That's why you see on the news where people are getting flyers in their mailbox saying, help keep white people white. Help continue white people in America. That's actually been happening. I saw that on local news where people were getting flyers like that in their mailbox. Because I think, honestly, that there are people in this country that are afraid. They're afraid of what will happen if they become the minority, because they're afraid that if they become the minority, then all of the brown people that are the majority are going to treat them the way that they treated Black and brown people in this country for all these years. I think that's what this is, some of what this is about. And so if you have the generation coming behind us and they learn this history about the KKK and they learn about what Black people, what Native Americans went through in this country, they're not going to like it. And if Black and brown people are the ones that are in the majority in the future, and we know that history and we don't like it, then it flips because we're the ones that are in power. And we haven't had that happen. But I do want to remind people too, the next time someone says to you, well, it's a scary thing because Black population is starting to increase and the Latino population is starting to increase, and white people, we may not be the majority anymore. I just want to remind everybody that there was a point in this country where Black people during slavery, where we were the majority. And a lot of people forget about that because they imported so many African slaves to this country to the point where at one point African slaves here were the majority in this country. So I just want to remind everybody about that. So my point is trying to change history. I'm not surprised with this with Texas because a couple years back, I have a friend that taught there and she was already telling me that they were starting to have them teach to kids in school that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. And if anybody ever says that to you, one of the things they'll say is that it didn't have anything to do with slavery. They were fighting for states' rights. I've heard that so many times, especially when I lived down south. You come back at them with, yeah, and what was one of the states' rights that they were fighting for? The right to have slaves. That's how you end that conversation. But they can try to erase this as much as they want, but people will find out. Look at how many of us found out. What was it, a couple months ago? We found out that the FBI was involved with Malcolm X's death. That came through. We found out the truth about Fred Hampton. That came through. Eventually, the truth does come out. And when they try to hide it and they try to cover it up, that just makes it worse. Because you have all these people now that are walking around and we're like, why did the FBI lie to us? Why did our teachers lie to us all these years about the Black Panther Party? All that stuff is coming out now. And I was one of those people too. I was like, I couldn't believe they taught us. I believed this stuff that they taught us. So that just makes people more angry. And it makes people seek out even more information. So I think that this isn't going to work for them. I think it's going to backfire. So I think this is a huge mistake that what they're trying to do in Texas. But again, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not surprised.
The Confederate Like the Confederacy literally had it codified in their constitution that they wanted to uphold the institution of slavery. So anybody that says that it's not about slavery, I'm like, oh, no, wait a minute now. Go back and read your ancestors' words. They literally wanted their slaves, their property. That's all they was fighting for. It was not about no damn, what was the state right? Like Sabby said, the state right to continue to treat black people like they're animals. That's it. The state right to not actually have to pay for the labor and, actually have to give some money out of the pocket and out of their profit from all this cotton and all this rice and sugar and everything else. Yep. That's what they were upset about. Exactly. Not because they wanted, the right to vote for whoever. Like it had nothing to do with none of that. So please. Cut all that out.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm emulating a Finney right now. I am living through her. But the point is that, Texas, what they're doing right now is that they're seeing that the culture has changed. A racist does not like being called a racist. Why? Because it's not popular, because they're seen as bad people, and they don't want to be seen as bad people. So therefore, for them, they're seeing that culturally that it is slipping through their fingers. White supremacy is slipping through their fingers, and they're saying, oh no, we're losing our power from a cultural standpoint. And then once you lose the culture, then it starts to gravitate towards the tangible, towards the economic, towards the actual laws that we have. Then people start to go, wait a minute, I thought the 13th Amendment was just to end slavery. What's this other provisor part that says, oh, well, except, as, in the form of imprisonment? Like, wait a minute, hold up. That's not right. And so then everything is starting to shift now. We're seeing a shift. And just like capitalism is trying to grab at anything it can to get to hold on to its power, white supremacy is grabbing at anything it can to hold on to its power. Look, I live in Florida. What did Ron DeSantis just do? He made critical race theory illegal. He's also making it a law that you have to register your political affiliation in the education system as well. Why? Why? White supremacy. It's that power. They want to keep a hold of it. They don't want to let it go. And the crazy part is, you go on TikTok, you see a whole sea of white children, and they're now confronting their parents about their parents' racism. The power's slipping. Culturally, it's slipping. And this is one of the reasons why their parents and their grandparents are going, oh no. Okay, we have to block this education. Here's the crazy part. You have the internet. Those of us here to teach the kids, to let them know that guess what? You're being propagandized, and here's the real history. This is one of the reasons why we made the Fred Hampton leftists, so that people can know what the real deal was. To know that, oh, people like me, back in the day, I couldn't have life insurance. Why? Because I was black. I couldn't own a home and pass it down to my kids. Why? Because I was black. I couldn't partake of the GI Bill, which was a huge boom to the economy, because why? I was black. And so also, then people get to learn about how the indigenous people were pretty much almost completely wiped out. And that my ancestors weren't just workers that were traveling to the United States just to help build the country. No, they were slaves. They were considered property. They weren't even given names. Slaves were not even given names. A horse can have a name, but a slave couldn't. We were considered property like a table or a chair. So this is something that they see. The mask is slipping. The power is slipping. And we want it to slip. And right now, we're doing things like the Fred Hampton leftists. Right now, we're ripping that off because it needs to be ripped off. And the thing is that as far as Texas is concerned, Number one, I hope that people are fighting tooth and nail in the courts for this, but that's easier said than done. But at the same time, we have to keep talking. Keep talking. You have nieces and nephews, talk to them. You have kids, grandkids, talk to them. Even your friends' kids, talk to them. Let them know about the history. Tell them everything that's contrary to the miseducation that is going on and that will continue to go on. Why did they make it so that we weren't allowed to read and write when we were slaves? Because they didn't want that education to get out there so that we can enlighten ourselves so that we can make a more perfect union. Why are they doing this in Texas? For the exact same reason. So guess what? We keep talking about it. Do not let this go. Education is power.
Go ahead, Andy.
Oh, I was just going to say I really feel like it was my place to be part of this discussion. I just wanted to listen mostly, but I just wanted to say that James and Sabby, I totally agree with both of you. I think that the Republican Party, the party of old white racists that are, like you were saying, James, they're just trying to grasp onto any little bit of power that they possibly can in a world that is passing them by, right? And Sabby, your point that the kids today aren't getting any messages from the same places that they got their messages, right? We're finding an awakening in our society. It's a beautiful thing because it's starting to, well, hopefully soon starting to have the people that understand and are awakening and are starting to get the information that they need through their education that they get on sites like ours, and I think it's just a matter of time. Now, with the climate change problem, hopefully there's enough time, but that needs to happen. That has to happen. It's a crazy thing. I for the life of me don't even understand what would cause people to be a racist. I don't get it. I've never understood it, and it's abhorrent to me. But if we keep doing, just like James said, if we just keep educating people, we keep talking about it, we keep doing the things we were doing. The protests that started after George Floyd, that was a awakening for some. There's still enough of the neoliberal mindset in society that was able to squash that down a little, but all of those feelings on our side of the aisle are still there, and they just need to continue to grow.
Yeah, we have a super chat from Non-Bread. He says, love you all. Thank you for keeping it real. So
we appreciate all the super chats and everything. I have something I want to add. Let's see anyone else will jump in. Like I said, I always like to make sure I say anything fact. I got the facts here from ADL fighting against anti-Semitism. The 3,000 KKK members. I just want to point that out there. They're mostly, and then they're scattered. I was reading they're scattered among like many groups. So like they struggle to get a crowd of like 20 in a lot of their demonstrations now. A lot of people know not to be shown as KKK. They're not that dumb, but there's still a giant racism problem. And now I'm gonna add an anecdotal story to back up what we're talking about here, because as someone who lived and sell cars in Kansas, I talked to a lot of white allies and a lot of white people. And big shout out to my friend Rob. Robert, he's one of my mutuals I know on Twitter. I met him. He's a white guy. Hopefully you watch it, homie. And we need white allies like my friend Rob, because my friend Rob will confront white racists. We talked about this. We always hang out. We smoke a little something. We have fun. Talk about politics. And I like Rob because he called out a lot of his white friends who was racist. And now this is coming from Rob. And this is why this story is so significant. According to Rob, and I see it myself, and maybe you guys can back this up as well. There are a lot of white people that are racist, and they're like conditioned that way through our culture. And then when they get called out by it, they get called out for the racism by white allies. Rob told me there's like almost a mental block there. And what I mean by that, they don't even know that they're being racist. And this is according to Rob here. So this Ando. According to him, and a lot of these conversations he had, they don't even realize that they're being racist or they're being wrong until they called out on it. Like it's so much propaganda and so much thought they are passed down through generation and generation. Like these same people were like, "Yeah, I'm not racist," but then they will think that black people are more violent inherently than other people. So it's like it's like a pathology, almost like a mental illness, the way they think. Right? You have to have these conversations to break through that. My friend Rob does a good job doing that. Converted a lot of people who was racist. He straight up said he hung around. I live in Missouri. He lived in Missouri. There are a lot of racist white people that he's been around, and he dragged them to the left. Some he will been successful with, some he has not. But when we had our conversation, what he was telling me was it's all about planting the seed. So you can't automatically assume that everyone who is racist will always be racist. Like there are people he converted that was racist who they got the seed plant in their mind that the way they're thinking is wrong, and then they start to adjust over time. Like this is how fights are won. Why am I bringing this up? Because now you have them teaching and whitewashing the history of racism. This is only going to make that problem worse. Like when this conversation is not discussed, when this bubble that allow racists have is not burst, they don't even get that seed planted through the proper education that we have. So that's why I never get mad. And there's this thing where people always want to gatekeep, where they're like, "Oh, you can't talk to conservatives. Oh, you can't talk to that guy because he's racist." I'm not. As a black man, but white people, it's your job to have conversation with racist white people. If you are cutting racist white people out of your circle and you cutting those people out completely, like, all right, I'm not ever going to have a conversation with you because it's too tough. You are not helping us. you are trying to take the path of least resistance of being an ally. That's why I said I like Rob. Hope he's watching. He's a friend. He's from Kansas City here. Because he actually had these conversations. He went to prison, had conversations with racists in prison. Right? So this is what I want out of my white allies. I see white allies like, "Yo, never talk to a racist." You're not helping. If you cut off your racist family member, well, I guess that's very therapeutic, and I kind of don't blame you. But if you cut that racist family member off instead of having these uncomfortable conversations over and over again, you're not really helping. I just want to bring that up because I think the KK story and this is connected because you break people out of anti-racist thought by having it may not work the first time, and this is what Rob, my white friend, told me. It didn't work the first time. He talked to some racist people, but then after conversation after conversation, then maybe they went through a life experience. We start to make ground, and what we see with the education system here is them going backwards from that. Maybe a lot of these racist people who made this decision, they saw this happening. Well, this process I'm laying out, they've seen this happen multiple times. They got to stop it because they need to divide and conquer. The divide and conquer only helps the ruling class. So I just want to add that part to that. And I also like what Sabby said, and I'll throw it out to the floor because I'm very open about my shit library growing up. I had a lot of stupid ass views, and most of it came because of my education. When I learned about history, when I learned about the history of the CIA, the real American history, that was the bridge of me becoming a leftist. So, like Sabby said, a lot of people get angry. There is that shock of anger when you realize you've been lied to, because that was one of the strongest things that shocked me out of becoming a lib and becoming a hardcore leftist. Because I was like, bro, everything you guys taught me was lie. So I'm going the opposite way. I'm going to learn to debunk this stuff. So I think I agree with what Sabby said 100%. It will backfire on them. Because me personally, when I realized how much I was lied to, I was like, all right, I'm going to learn the truth, and I'm not trusting none of y'all motherfuckers ever again. Straight up. And that's what led to the person I am now. So those are my thoughts. I'll pass it back to the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Let's go Sabby first. Oh no, RJ and then Sabby. Let's do RJ and then Sabby, okay?
Yeah, we got a couple of super chats. One from Jonathan Neves. He says, "Many Soviet thanks to all for all that you do and the messages you promote." We also got one from the Populist Voice. It says, "Because of the climate crisis, we have to accelerate the awakening of the American people, and FHL is doing that." That's from Compton J. So thank you very much for the super chat.
Jay. I just wanted to add that in reference to the school situation, this is not just a problem in the South, by the way. I want to make that very clear because even here in the Northeast in Maine, they're not even required to teach Black history. So I've met people who were from Maine that didn't know any of this stuff. I'm talking about the things that all of us learned in school. When it came to like civil rights, when it came to like even the Confederacy, they didn't know anything about this. It was skipped over. You have a state right next to me called Rhode Island. During the 18th century, Rhode Island dominated the slave trade. And a lot of people don't know about it because they don't talk about it. You go to Rhode Island, you learn about Rhode Island history, you never hear them talk about it. It's a shameful thing to them. So they decide not to talk about it, not to discuss it. But the plantations, the old plantations are still there. There's plantations, they're in the north, but they're still plantations. So this is why it's important that you listen to Black leftist commentators because the stuff that we're telling you, especially like today, you're not going to hear this in school. You're not going to hear it on mainstream media. So it's really important that you listen to some of this stuff because I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. This is not just a problem in the South.
Okay, we got another super chat as well. We got one from Greg's Brews. That's Savvy's man. Okay. It says, "It pisses me off how conservatives act like KKK members are the only racists, or occasionally they'll acknowledge that everyone has unconscious bias, but they act like there's nothing in between unconscious bias and KKK." Any comments on that? And thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, one thing I want to emphasize when I'm talking to Rob and a lot of the other white allies who talk to white racists, one thing that Rob brought up to me that I thought was very interesting, and he told me like a lot of these people they were racist. It sounds so strange to me, but he said when he talked to these people, they really believe they're right. So when he came with the facts and disproved, and like a lot of these people, they're like, "Oh, black people not going through racism." That's ridiculous. There's no such thing. No, there's no systematic racism. And Rob, being a great ally he is, he breaks it down by stats. And he said he talked to people and he literally had people say, "Oh, okay, I literally didn't know that." Like, I literally didn't know they had it that hard. And it sounds shocking, but listen to what Sabrina just said. They are not like people are not taught basic facts in education in our education system growing up. So if you don't know anything about what happened to our people, I can easily see, like in hindsight, I try to take myself out of my life experience and out of my mind. Like if I only grew up around white people, I grew up in a horrible education system. I can easily see how people led to that can lead to some of these beliefs I see that come from right wingers where they're like, "Yeah, there's no racism. What are you talking about? I got a black friend. I know black. My mailman's a black man. I'll smile at him. I'll wave at him." And once again, I'm using Rob Ando evidence because he talked to a lot of white racists, and this is what he told me. A lot of these people think they're right, but then you bring them the facts, and they're like, "Oh wait, what? I didn't know that." Then there are some, which is a significant amount. I'm not trying to undermine this. You're not gonna change their mind, but I think people underestimate how many people can have their mind changed with facts and information, and that's why they want to suppress this stuff in our education system. What was you about to add, if anything?
I think JB was actually gonna add something because I was gonna.
Okay.
Go ahead, JB. Okay, cool. Oh no. Just to really bring all of this back and bring all of this back home, like, just as many racist people as we're talking about, all these racist people, all these racist KKK members, a lot of these racists are really hiding in hoods on the left. And that's the thing that I'm truly worried about. Yes, I'm worried about, the overt racists. Yes, I'm worried about, anti-racist white people organizing their racist, their racist family members into, and centering anti-racism in all their conversations. Yes. But the real people we need to look out for are the people that are on the left who know these things. Like, They know these things. They know the stats. They come to the Black Lives Matter marches. They've heard all of us out here in DC give all the stats, all the facts, list all the names, do moments of silence. They know all these things, but they still won't really fight for our rights or our safety. They still want to give money to the police, and they still support the George Floyd Policing Act. Like, yikes, you know what I'm saying? You know, all these white people are speaking out against Texas right now. All these same leftists and liberals on the apparent left, you know, they're speaking out and chastising Texas for their overt and open racism. But are y'all chastising yourselves and your comrades for your covert racism and for everything that you do to stop the liberation movement in order to keep yourself comfortable and keep money in your pockets? I just want y'all to simmer on that. You know what I'm saying? I want y'all to simmer on that. But I do want to move to the next story because we have two more stories that I want to get to. And yeah, so all right. So Daniel Hale is a former intelligence analyst who is currently being charged under the Espionage Act and is facing 10 years in jail for just telling the truth about what the U.S. is doing, about exposing a drone program, drone strikes in Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, all these different countries, all these different places. And over this 5-month period that he was, you know, doing these analytics, he said about 90% of those killed were non-target civilians. So this is what he's being charged for exposing the truth about what our military is doing with our dollars. Regardless of his political ideologies, regardless of anything else, we need to protect whistleblowers so we can continuously have this information. We talk about education. We talk about the things that U.S. history. Imagine how many things the CIA has done that we will never know about because people are too scared to actually talk about it. Imagine that. So, you know, shout out to Comrade Misty. She's been tweeting about this nonstop on my TL, so I definitely had to bring this up. But yeah, I just want to open this up to the floor. You know, free speech is something that we really need to protect, like for real. So whoever wants to go first, I'm going to just go ahead and give it to the floor.
And I was telling people that there needs to be a post-Bernie Sanders left. Right now, there's like these people, and I know these are the same people that are doing everything they can to tank the Medicare for All march, for example. These people, they limit their Overton window only to what progressive politicians tell them they should care about. Where they care about, oh, I want to boost some wages a little bit. Maybe might get a little bit of healthcare, student loan debt cancellation, if that. These are great things. But this is so 2015. There are so many privileged leftists that are like 5 to 10 years behind the ball. And they're not covering some of the most important things. The prosecution of whistleblowers and the crackdown against journalists against the United States empire is out of control. You guys know that they are throwing the harshest sentence ever at a whistleblower, at Daniel Hale. Because he's the one that told me, I heard about the 90% drone strike stat because of him. So what the post-Bernie Sanders left need to become, I can acknowledge, despite me being as critical as I am of Bernie, I can acknowledge that he started something. He dragged me to the left. He dragged a lot of people to the left. But Bernie Sanders is about as far right anyone should be accepting, let alone voting for Biden. But that's another story. Like, you guys are complicit with this because they was open with what they was doing. They was open about the fact they wanted to charge Julian Assange. They're open about the fact that they won't believe there should be a freedom of the press. So why isn't this an important issue on the left? Why isn't this an important issue just like Medicare for All is? Why is this an issue just as important as increasing minimum wage? Because it is that dire. Because this is just a start of something new that a lot of people don't even have the imagination to believe. Like people think that like countries like Nazi Germany came out of nowhere, that the authoritarian states come out of nowhere. No, it's a gradual shift, and not see it. And people think, like you brought up Misty, friend of the show. Like she highlights this stuff because it's extremely important. You have human rights organizations all across the world that stand up for Stephen Donziger, stand up for Daniel Hale, stand up for Julian Assange, because we see what's coming. Meanwhile, there are some people on the left that I see all the time, or maybe they're the infiltrators, the liberals. I should call them liberals because that's what they are. I see them smear Julian Assange and his supporters. The TYT crowd, they were like, "Oh, Misty, our friend." I see her get smeared as an Assangeist. What the Assangeist? You mean someone who actually care about free speech? Now, I'm here to break down why this stuff happens, guys, because the worship of politicians is such a giant problem on the left. So I want anyone to know that people are smeared as Assanges. People are smeared as being unreasonable for standing up for free speech. You know why they do that? They do that to protect AOC and Bernie. Because if they attack Julian Assange supporters and make it seem like we're kooks, it gives cover for Bernie Sanders and AOC for not speaking on that issue. So this is why I said we need to oppose Bernie Sanders left. I give all the credit for starting this revolution, but he's been left behind. Bernie Sanders is still in 2015, if that. If you're not talking about these whistleblowers who are being prosecuted by our evil government, if you're not actually standing up for the Fourth Amendment rights that the Biden administration is trying to roll back, he lost that court case, but people didn't cover that. He tried to roll back our Fourth Amendment rights. So are they going to keep losing these court battles? Just because he lost that court battle don't mean Biden is not anti-Fourth Amendment. He's not anti-Second Amendment. He's showing again he's anti-First Amendment. Are these the people that we're supposed to be allies with? The people on the left that think we should be allies with these fascist authoritarians that shutting down whistleblowers. We gotta have enough. I'll pass it back to. I went along. I got some more, but I'll open it back to the panel. But we need to start speaking on it. That's why I'm glad you highlighted this, if any. This is so important. I talked to this yesterday with Lee Camp on an interview. Make sure you gotta check that interview out because Lee Camp was covering this story as well. The post Bernie Sanders left need to be militant about the First Amendment, Second Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment. All the amendments, right? But those in particular. Because I see weakness on the left on these issues. This is why I call out the weak Western left. Because if you're not flagging the Biden administration trying to roll back people's Fourth Amendment rights where they said police don't need just cause to search and seize people's homes, they tried that. They lost. But if they had their way, that would be law. We need to stop pretending these people are allies and start putting our boot on their neck. Instead of saying he's doing better than... All right, I'm open to... I'm not going on the rant. I'll open it back to the floor. I got more to add, but I want to get your guys' thoughts before I go on another rant.
Go ahead, Savs.
I'm glad that Nick brought up Julian Assange because I was thinking about this as well. It was really interesting to me how many people stuck around with TYT after they smeared Julian Assange. And it wasn't just TYT. I remember when Crystal and Sager laughed about Julian Assange. So what do all these people have in common? These people are wealthy, and I'll go as far as to say these people are liberals. I've been saying that for a while. You have to watch what they say versus what they actually do. Again, a lot of the situations that are talked about on their shows, they are not directly affected by these things. They can talk about Medicare for all. They can talk about healthcare, but they all have healthcare. They're covered. They're all set. The same thing with Ryan Grimm. He's in the same situation. So it's like the people that Nick's talking about, the ones that say they're on the left, but they're smearing people for supporting Julian Assange. And, now with Daniel Hale, these people weren't really serious to begin with. They were only willing to go so far. And to me, I call that a liberal. I don't call that a leftist. But this is just another example with Daniel Hale. This is another example, again, of the United States government trying to shut up someone that has revealed that the United States is still yet again bombing brown people abroad, but innocent brown people abroad. Same thing. Obama did the same thing. Joe Biden just bombed Somalia. I mean, what are we doing here? And so they're going to punish the person who revealed that information? For what? I think the American people have a right to know that you're killing all these innocent people. What is it all for? This is what happens when the United States try to be the world's police, and they've been doing it for so long. Now they're looking at Cuba again. It's ridiculous. Imagine if other countries did the same thing to us that we do to them. Imagine if, let me pick a random country, Germany or something. Imagine if Germany was constantly bombing us, or one of the countries that we bomb all the time. Imagine if Somalia or Middle East, like imagine if they were bombing us with drones all the time. See, it's hard to picture it because we're not in their position. We don't have to worry about walking out the door and trying to catch the bus or trying to get in our car and have to worry about the fact that we could get bombed because people are just dropping bombs on us. But the people that live in those countries, they do. And that includes children. Children. We saw the video for Julian Assange. There were kids in the van. So this is the thing that kills me. This is why people say that they are not against imperialism, but they are leftists. And Afeni and I talked about this before. You cannot be a leftist if you are for imperialism. You cannot be. You cannot be okay with the United States killing innocent people. You can't be for that. And this is where people like me, like people like Vosh for me, fall short. He falls flat on this issue because you just expose yourself. You reveal yourself when you say that you're for these wars. That's just my take on that.
Yeah, I just find it very interesting because, you know, I'm a military veteran, you know, I'm an anti-war military vet. So when I think about the type of training that we had to go through, and I think about the type of things that we were told to do, I think about just how little we were really paid at the end of the day to do the things that we were doing. Regardless of all the different benefits they try to sell to you, they don't give you anything. To kill and bomb innocent civilians, to carry out these wars, to sacrifice your life for a country that actually doesn't even care about you enough to pay you minimum wage. You know? So when I look at these so-called liberals, so-called leftists, so-called whatever, who actually attack people for exposing war crimes of the U.S., actually smear people, regardless of how you feel about Julian Assange, regardless of how you feel about any of these people's political ideologies. This is not about who is an acceptable and victim of these crimes against, you know, that the U.S. are trying to wage against these people, against these whistleblowers.
Let me just add this, Afeni. I'll pass it right back to you. The same people that smear Julian Assange, and these are people that call themselves leftists. I like that Sabrina said he called them liberals. What's the implication of what they're saying? Think about that. This guy does not agree with me politically, so he does not deserve First Amendment rights. How disgusting is that? Back to Afeni. I just want to add that.
Such weird energy.
Very disgusting.
Such weird energy. Like how do you fight for free speech? And how do you expect to get liberation if we can't speak freely? I saw Meg said in the chat, like, how do we fight for Medicare for all if we can't speak freely against what this government is doing? How do we fight for our rights? How do we fight for reparations? For all of the irreparable harms that this country has waged against Black and Indigenous people? How do we fight for those things if we're not actually fighting for First Amendment rights? Because if they're targeting whistleblowers like this that are calling out war crimes, that are calling out really just heinous shit that we are doing overseas, then what does that mean for all of the leftists and all of the anti-capitalists and all the people that are just really, at the end of the day, seeing that this system does not work for majority of people and fighting against that, fighting for people's rights to actually survive? What does that mean for us? I could go all day about that, but go ahead, JB. I think you're muted, Boo.
You're muted, JB.
My bad. Sorry. We have another hero among us that needs to be protected. Daniel Hale. We are given this information so that we can do something about it. What we do about it is we talk about it and we make sure that we uphold the rights of all Americans. Just like what Nick said, the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments, we need to uphold those. We do not want to make their sacrifice in vain. Yes, of course, he's still alive, but the sacrifice of being in prison by a fascistic, authoritarian government. So we need to make noise, and we need to let them know that this is unacceptable, because they're, I'm going to say this, they are murdering people, innocent people, in our name. You do not want innocent people to be murdered on your behalf. And for many of those leftists that are imperialist, so-called leftists, if you are for this, there is blood on your hands. And you are a war criminal. I do not see you any different than Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, or Bill Clinton. I don't see you any different. So it would behoove you to re-examine yourself and to readjust yourself so that you are no longer an imperialist, because you know why we're over there. You know why. And you see what imperialism does. So to blindly say, oh, it's just to protect the country. No, it's not. You know it's not. We know it's not. Cut the BS. So, yeah, you know, this whole issue with Daniel Hale needs to be busted wide open, and we need to keep talking about it. I'm so glad that you guys brought this up. Thank you to Misty, as well as Lee Camp, friends of the show, Lee Camp, for also bringing this up as well, because we need to protect our whistleblowers, and we want to protect them. One of the reasons why we want to protect them is because we want more to come out. Because if whistleblowers are too afraid to come out, then they won't come out, and we won't know more. We won't know the essential information we need to know. So we need to show them that we are willing to stand by them at all costs. And so, this is just another stain on the United States that needs to be changed. And I wish the best for Daniel Hale and his family.
Go ahead, Andy.
I just wanted to make the point that for a lot of reasons, 9/11 really defined effectively the United States for the last 20 years. And, how you've moved forward as a country, it spawned how many illegal wars and the death of civilians in other countries. And how horrific everybody felt when it happened here in the United States. Let me offer this. The United States government has dropped a 9/11 on 7 different countries every single day during the Obama administration. It's insane, the American policy of war and the need and greed to make more money because of oil and regime change wars. We have to protect the rights of our journalists and others who go out there and let us know about it, because if we don't, we're blind to this. We can't see it. Right? How many people on the left cheered because Donald Trump got thrown off of Twitter? The second you did that, you effectively gave the man permission to do it to you. Free speech isn't just for who you agree with. Free speech is for everyone, whether you agree with them or not. This is so important in our society. Our social media platforms that we use to get our words out there are controlled by large corporations that enjoy all the benefits that society has to offer right now. And they have every reason in the world to shut us all down. If they're going after Julian Assange or Daniel or anybody, what's to stop them from coming after us? And we're done. We have to make sure that we protect people's right to free speech. And I agree completely, Nick. This is just as important an issue as Medicare for all, as student debt, as climate change. This is all part of the progressive policy package that I like to talk about whenever I can. But we are blinding ourselves the second that we allow our heroes like Julian Assange to be stifled in this way. And that's huge. That's so huge. People need to realize it.
Powerful point, Andy. I want to add another point here. I'll try not to rant too much. I'll try to keep this one short. Do you guys remember when the liberal class, for a very small time, pretended they care about whistleblowers during the Trump administration? When they was pushing Ukraine Gate, which was a joke. Apparently, the whistleblower there was trying to share evidence that Trump was trying to get dirt on his political opponents using Ukraine and Russia, which everyone does. If you don't believe that Democrats do the same thing, you're naive. But you notice the whistleblowers they stood up for? What crimes against humanity did that whistleblower expose? Well, again, I think he should be protected. Anyone who's a whistleblower should be protected. I'm just asking for intellectual consistency. And I love the point that JB brought up. Because JB was talking about how if you prosecute this whistleblower, it makes it less likely for someone to be more likely to whistleblow in the future. And they are so evil. They are so transparently evil. You realize they admit this, right? Because Daniel Hill is getting the harshest sentence ever for anyone who's been prosecuted under the Espionage Act. And then the reason the prosecutors gave, so they saying it out loud. The reason they gave, they said, the reason I know, they were like, we know the sentencing seems harsh, but what Daniel Hill did was extraordinary crime. So we got to make sure people are less likely to do it in the future. So in a nice way, they said, yeah, we are giving him an insane sentence more than we give rapists in some situations because we don't want people to expose the crimes of the U.S. empire again. So being a leftist in America has been like being driven insane when you see our government admit the evil they do. And then when you point it out, people call you crazy. No, you guys don't go ahead and read what the prosecution said regarding Daniel Hill. That's literally the exact explanation they gave. And then for a thought experiment while a lot of you guys are talking, I looked up the Ukraine, and if you guys want to do this, it's very hilarious. It's very hilarious if you do this. Google Trump whistleblower and read any story that comes from the liberal media. The story I just read was a story of them melting down because Trump may have accidentally tweeted his name out. And I remember that. The liberal crowd lost their mind because Trump, and I don't agree with Trump doing that either. But now compare how they treat that whistleblower. When they say, oh, you can't even say that guy's name. Now they want to think a harsh penalty against Daniel Hill. These people go against Stephen Dozinger for exposing the crimes of corporate America. These people want to prosecute Julian Assange. So where's the intellectual consistency here? This mirrors the same problem I mentioned with the police state. And this is why liberals are dangerous. Because liberals would virtue signal support for freedom of the press. That's what they did under Trump. Oh, we gotta vote out Trump because he's a threat to freedom of the press. And then they win political points doing that. They get the political, I'm blanking on the right word, the political will The political capital. That's wrong. They'll get the political capital feigning support for freedom of speech. And then once they win, then they crack down on it even more. That's the same thing they do with the police state. I brought up on my show. They pretend to care about George Floyd and his family. They invite them to the White House. They put Black Lives Matter in their profile pics. And then when they get in charge, they fund the police more. Now you guys see why I expose the Democratic Party all the time? Now do you guys people are like, why are you always talking about Democrats, not conservatives? Because they're the threat. They're the one who get political capital, pretending to support these ideas that we're talking about on this panel. Then when they get in charge, they are the worst. They're the worst prosecutors than the conservatives are. Barack Obama used the Espionage Act more than any president in the history combined. Your Democrat did. And meanwhile, people ask me why I always criticize Democrats. Back to the panel.
Who's the perfect person to actually protect? Like, how do we classify that? And if you're actually thinking about who should be protected and who shouldn't be, you're automatically like not in line with leftist principles. Period. There's no such thing as a perfect anybody. And for us to pretend like, some people can whistleblow and other people can't just because of their political ideologies or, certain things that they may have in their past, it doesn't matter. If the information protects all of us, and at the end of the day, if we did what we were supposed to do with that information, it would have. If the information protects all of us, then why are we persecuting these people publicly on the left? Why are we not fighting for their rights? Why are we not organizing rallies outside of the courthouse in their favor as leftists? Why is this not a part of the anti-war movement that we need to still be continuing? Because they're still continuing these endless wars. We're still supporting the genocide in Yemen. Still. Joe Biden just bombed Somalia. Those are black people. Black people. So where's the anti-war crowd at? That's what we need right now.
Putting more sanctions on Cuba.
Sorry,
go ahead. I'll just add, they put more sanctions on Cuba too. The same liberals that were like, oh, we got to stand with Cubans, so let's put sanctions that hurt Cubans more. But sorry, Finney, go ahead.
Let's continue to cripple their economy and every other economy that we don't agree with. As a country, we're just gonna go ahead and throw sanctions on your economy and then blame you. That's just what we do. As Americans, that's just what our government does. The rich and powerful, this is how they amass all their wealth. This is how they keep all their capital. This is how they keep all their global control. But yeah, so we're just gonna move. Oh, go ahead, Sabs.
Oh, just one quick question. Any word from Ilhan Omar about Biden bombing Somalia?
Isn't that her home country? She was a proud black woman, a proud Muslim black woman.
From Somalia.
A couple years ago. I don't know.
Nancy Pelosi shut her down real quick. Nancy Pelosi got Ilhan Omar to fall in line, and if it wasn't so tragic, it would be almost impressive. Like damn, you're good at this, Pelosi, because Ilhan supposed to be the anti-war one. Damn, Pelosi's good at this. I hate it, but man, no one played the game better than her.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi endorsed Ilhan Omar in the primaries. Don't forget, she accepted the endorsement too for re-election, so that carried weight as well. She owes her some favors.
I add this next tidbit here. I covered this on my show before. It'd be really quick, but there was a story that came out. It may be about 2 or 3 months from now at this point when they highlighted how Nancy Pelosi won over the squad, and it's hilarious because when they got to Ilhan Omar, Nancy Pelosi won Ilhan Omar loyalty literally just by being nice to her. She would call her, ask her how the kids was doing, take her out to lunch. That's all it takes. Very embarrassing.
I heard he took them all out for ice cream.
Not Ben and Jerry's though.
No,
Of course not.
Not that one.
No, not that pedestrian ice cream. The good stuff.
I'll take some Cherry Garcia, please.
Oh yeah, Ben and Jerry's, and well, no, I need to see what the just real quick, not to get too tangential, but I need to see what the update is on those factories they have in Israel. Like, what is the rework? Either you're cutting ties to Israel or you're not. So I want to, before I give them too much praise,
Yeah,
what's the
that's a
update?
fair point. But you know for a fact that Nancy Pelosi's never in Ben Jerry's ever again.
Oh yeah, duh.
They're not sponsoring genocide enough for my liking.
Yeah. You know,
There's not enough blood in the ice cream for them.
they said the occupied territory of Palestine, people lost their damn minds, baby. Like, do you not realize that whole country is Palestine? Like, Israel's not real. Like, Israel's not real. Let's be very frank about that. But anyway, y'all, because I can go on about that forever. Okay, so I just want to get to this final story while we have this last 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so a woman by the name of Tanisha Chappell died died after being held in Jackson County Jail in Bronson, Indiana. She was 23 years old, so she was only a year younger than me. And you know, regardless of whatever her charges were, they will not give any information about why she died. They will not let her family identify her body. So yeah. I'm just gonna open this one up to the panel. Yeah.
God damn it. God damn it.
I'm reading it some more as we scroll because anyone who follow my work know where I stand. I have covered the issue of police violence and defund the police probably more than anyone on the left. I don't have the platform most people do, but I promise you, I don't think there's anyone on the left that covered police violence more than me, who covered defund the police more than me. And you guys know I don't read these stories no more. I just don't because I'm as radicalized as it gets. So these stories are very important, and that's why we're sharing it right now because it's the path to getting people to realize that this carceral state that we live under is completely immoral and you cannot justify it. And this is why I take my staunch anti-imperialist stance as well, because all this stuff is connected. You are not going to convince me in any circumstance to fearmonger over Russia, over China, over Iran, over Venezuela, over Colombia, over any of these countries. You're not going to convince me to fearmonger over these countries. While we're doing this, we are the police state. We are the carceral state. We have the moral high ground over, check this, nobody in the world, period. And things that's considered a controversial statement among the liberal crowd. Oh, you think we're not as you think we're worse than North Korea? You think we're worse than China? Fucking tankies. You guys really think that we're worse than Venezuela? We got 25% of the world's prison population, and then the ones we do have in custody, there's a good chance they might die. Like this poor person has. Like I said, I'm not well read on this story. I can't break it down, but I'm telling you, no one covered police violence more on the left than I have over the last year. I promise you that.
There's no need to break it down, right? Because we Nick, you went over these stories. Yeah, but you've been over these stories millions of times. Afeni, you have seen this so many times your entire life. Andy, you're in Canada. You actually are on the outside looking in. You're like, what the hell is going on in the United States? Sabby, you're seeing people like, black women that are our age being killed left and right. We are sick and tired of these stories. And the thing is that some of these people who are who are propagandizing about, Russia, North Korea, like what Nick said, who gives a damn about it? Right? Then what's going on right here in the United States? People are dying right here at the hands of the people who are sworn to protect them. Oh, I'm sorry. Not sworn to protect them, sworn to protect the Capitol, sworn to protect people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Warren Buffett. You know what? If they're just going to sit there and protect just those people, then we don't need them. Get rid of them. Because you know what? We're going to have to protect ourselves because we're sick and tired of people like, I didn't get to read this young woman's name, and I apologize, but this young lady's name, it needs to be on everybody's mouth, And guess what? You're not seeing this on mainstream media right now. You're seeing this right here on Fred Hampton Leftist.
What's her name
Because
again?
they,
Just to remind us, because I didn't know it either. Because
please, give us her name.
I just now getting introduced to the story live. So
Her name is Tanisha Campbell. I'm about to provide some more.
Yeah, let's put respect on her name.
Okay, please,
I didn't know it
please.
either.
Tanisha Chappell's mother, Levita McCain, says Chappell called them to say something was wrong. Chappell's mother was quoted as saying, she called numerous times over and over again saying, they're going to kill me, get me out of here, says McCain, who expresses regret over not being able to pay Chappell's $4,007 bond. So before I just want to say, like, you know, this is the reason why we say abolish the police. This is the reason why we say abolish prison. This is the reason why we say, like, cash bail, cash bond, all these things. It is literally a crime to be poor. It is literally a crime to be black. And she was the only black girl in there. So why, of all the people in this jail, was it this woman? She was the only black woman in there, y'all. And over $4,000. Her life wasn't even worth $4,000 to these people.
We need to call this out what it is. And I want Pastor JB and we get Sabrina's thoughts in after that. I'm tired. Sabrina go next after this then. But we need to stop using soft language. That's literally the main thing that separates me from a lot of the leftists. Like, I don't say anything that different, but I don't use the BS language that we are trained to use. Like, I would say the same thing a lot of people use, but I was like, all right, drop the euphemisms, stop being nice to the liberal class, call it what it is. This is a state execution of a black woman. Imagine this story, how the liberal media and how white America will cover this story if this was a story in Russia. Where there's you can pick out any of the many Russian ethnic groups there, where she was killed in police custody, where she was begging for her life, pretty much saying this is going to happen. If this happened in any other country, we would say this is a state execution of opposition. This is a minority class that we just kill. You have police protesters, infamous protesters that have died in police custody. That's 100% retaliation. So I'm not saying anything different than a lot of leftists say, but I just see a lot of people hold shit back. This is why we need balls to police. This is why we need balls to a conservative state, because this is nothing less than a state execution. Like I said, I didn't know the details of this story until Finney read it to me. If I got some more, I'll probably get even more heated than I am now, because this is me speaking out of pure emotion. But fuck the soft language. This is a state execution by our government. Our government is tyrannical, and we need to start treating it as such. This wasn't an accident. This was an execution. Sorry, Sabrina, go ahead. Like this is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to remind everybody this was over shoplifting, correct? Shoplifting.
Shoplifting.
As I learn more, the story gets even worse.
Yeah. So this was over shoplifting, a $4,000 bond for shoplifting. Number one, that's ridiculous. Number two, I just want to remind everybody also about the other people we've seen this happen to. Freddie Gray also died in police custody. Sandra Bland also died in police custody. They weren't dead before the police got them. So you have to ask yourself what happened to them after the police took them into their custody. And the fact that they're not even releasing like the cause of death, that should make you concerned. That should make you question.
This is evil. This is just evil. It's evil.
23 years old. I want to remind everybody, again, she got arrested for shoplifting. Dylan Roof walked into a church and killed innocent people, was handcuffed, and they stopped and gave him food, took him to go get food. He didn't die in police custody. This is how police treat Black people. This has been going on ever since police were invented in this country. Police were invented as slave patrols. We didn't always have police. I want everybody to understand that, because a lot of people come back and they say, you can't just abolish the police. That's insane. Why would you even mention that? We didn't always have them. So at one point in this country, society was functioning without police. And I've told you guys this before. Oftentimes, when police get to these scenes, when they get to these situations, they make the situation worse than it was before they got there. They do not know how to de-escalate crime, which is what they are trained to do. They don't de-escalate, they escalate the situation. They make things worse.
And I just want to say, 73% of white people have no contact with the police at all in America. During the year, the other 30% initiated the contacts. So your experience with the police and our experience with the police is not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The safest communities in America have more resources. They do not have more police officers. That's just the reality of the situation. We know what keeps us safe, and they also know what keeps Black people controlled. They also know what keeps Black people in fear, and that is over policing them. That is murdering us in cold blood without any consequences, without anybody actually being held accountable. That is what happens. So what are we supposed to do other than abolish the police, especially if we know they don't work? Because they're not deterring crime. They're not making anybody safer. Matter of fact, they're killing more people than it's fucking worth. So, I wish we could give this Black woman more time. We're definitely following this story as it develops because it's pretty early. They're not giving many details, of course. It's really just the family coming out and speaking to the media. But as we get more details around this story, around what happened to this woman, we'll definitely be updating everybody. And yeah, so it's about time for us to wrap up. I don't know who wants to do their plugs first, but yeah.
Can I do my plug? Later to this evening at 7 p.m., I will be doing a disability roundtable, and we will be talking about how we are treated as disabled people. And this is also going to be part of the launch for the Medicare for All March coming this Saturday. I will have my guests on will be Savage Joy Marie. She'll be on with me this evening. So be sure to tune in about an hour from now, and we will be doing that live here on Fred Hampton Leftist.
Okay, for my show on Revolutionary Jargon tomorrow, I will have 3 guests on my 2-hour show. It's going to be a lot of fun. First guest is Temper Kennedy she's the co-host. They are the co-host of Uncivil Disobedience, so that's going to be great. I'm also going to have Malik on the 2nd hour, and the 3rd hour doing news story is going to have Elias Cepeda. He's going to be coming back with me. Check me out.
And tonight at 7 p.m. Oh, there's a lot of us streaming tonight. It's a busy night. Tonight at 7 p.m. On my channel, Sabby Sabs, Jackie from FHL is going to be on with me, and we're actually going to talk about the general strike that's scheduled for October 15th. So we're going to go into more detail about that. I know a lot of people had questions about it. And then tomorrow I'm going to do a Medicare for March pre-show with Kevin, excuse me, not Kevin. Woo, wrong person. With Kyle, who organized the Medicare for All March in Boston. He'll be on. And I'll also have on a podcaster who lives in Canada who's going to talk about how healthcare works in Canada. And then Saturday, I'll be live streaming the Medicare for All March in Boston.
Yay, Canada. Well, I might as well go next because I started speaking. I, unlike everyone else, have the night off. But Friday morning at 10 a.m., Hair of the Dog show. We originally had a guest scheduled, but they had a schedule problem. So that's going to be coming up next week. But Carrie and I are going to be talking a little bit more about the M4 All March coming up on Saturday. And we're also going to be talking about new sanctions on Cuba from the Biden administration. Woohoo! I'm going to have to bring a bigger suitcase when I go there next time. So, as well, Macro and Cheese, a podcast that I produce, is dropping on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And our guest this week is Pascal Robert, a Haitian American who is an expert on the Haitian Revolution. And this guy is just an amazing speaker and just it's a really cool podcast. If you're on the left and you want to know Haiti's role in the slave trade, and how the revolution, and how a bunch of black slaves basically kicked the ass of three of the most powerful countries in the world at the time, this is your podcast. It's a really good one, I guarantee. And on Saturday in the afternoon, I'm teaming up with Luke Parcher on the Real Progressives platform, and we are going to be live streaming during the march. We have on the ground reporters in 5 of the different cities, and we're going to be trying to get some of the streams from the VIP people that are talking on the ground, and some of the acts and interviews with leftists who want Medicare for all. So please tune in if you're around. Thank you very much.
So my attention this weekend, I'll be covering the Medicare for All marches in Kansas City. I know we'll have a few live streams going, but I'll be live tweeting, maybe giving a speech at the Kansas City event. In terms of speakers, I'm very excited. I will have Anthony Clark Jr. back on. He has been working with the chairman himself, Fred Hampton Jr., on opening a fridge to feed the community in Chicago, and they officially launched. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm still trying to get Anthony Clark to get Fred Hampton Jr. on the show, but he's very busy. But I want to promote all the work that they do, because Anthony Clark worked really closely with the chairman, and I always want to prop up anything they do. Cherry Honkala, the 2012 vice presidential nominee for the Green Party, will join our show again next Saturday to promote more of what they're doing with the Poor People's Army. They got a lawsuit they are playing against the state. I'll allow them to explain more in detail so I don't butcher it. But they also will talk about the 16 points of unity and why that's so important for the left to keep in mind. And also, Brianna Joy Gray is still in the works. Sometime next week, she is traveling. She's very busy. So I'm very excited about that episode as well. So we got a lot of great things coming on. But most importantly, the Medicare for All marches. If you know anyone, please bring your friends. Preach. It's our job right now to share and spread the message on the Medicare for All marches as much as we can. Obviously, our politicians are ignoring it, so we cannot rely on any politicians to bail us out. So we got a lot of great shows coming up. Make sure you support all of those. But as far as I see it, this weekend, the Medicare for All marches is what it's all about. So please show up and bring a friend and tell a friend, because that's what it's all about. So that's all I have.
Yay. All right. Well, I will be speaking at the DC's Medicare for All March. I am the first speaker of the DC Medicare for All March. So if you're coming out here, that's where I'll be. So I will not be doing my podcast this week live, but I will be live streaming from the Medicare for All March. But next week, I will have Kamali Rose on from the Radical Democracy Show. And we will be talking about, I'm not sure yet what the theme of the show is, but y'all know that I'll have my little person of the week. And also my YouTube for my podcast will go up along with the clips all next week, because I'm just now learning how to edit footage. So yeah, that's all the stuff I got going on. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you for staying on with us. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for planning this revolution with us. Like, this is great, guys. And catch us all this weekend. Make sure you're at the Medicare for All March. It's not just about being on YouTube. It's actually about being in the street, period. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Powerful stuff, fam. Good stuff.
Hey guys, before we leave, I just wanted to mention when I was